If I'm being honest, I was actually looking forward to this new Robin Hood movie. Robin Hood? Boy, we're off to a great start, aren't we? I was looking forward to watching this new Peter Pan movie. Goodness. Even though at this point we definitely didn't need or even want a new Peter Pan movie, but this one just looked fun to me. So Peter Pan and Wendy is the brand new Disney film starring Alexander Milani, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, as Peter Pan, Ever Anderson as Wendy, and Jude Law as Captain Hook. Directed by David Lowery, it follows very much that classic Peter Pan storyline, where he visits Wendy and her brothers and takes them to Neverland. In terms of basic premise, it really isn't anything you don't already know. And honestly, for what this movie goes for, it makes sense they didn't try to reinvent the whole thing. Now, I feel like I don't really need to say this, especially so soon, but it's clear this movie was targeted for a much younger audience. It's something that's pretty evident going in. You know, going into this movie as an adult, expecting it to be your next favorite thing, it's kind of foolish. This movie isn't made for us, and that's perfectly fine. And honestly, that's part of the movie's charm. It's self-aware, and it knows that its true audience will in fact enjoy what it's offering. Granted, as an adult, I will say, I enjoyed this movie a lot more than I expected to. Now, Peter Pan himself wasn't necessarily the definitive Peter Pan we've seen yet, but as far as simply being overall solid, he was great.
She is a fairy.
Are you Peter Pan?
Were you expecting someone else?
He embodies the character we know, and does pretty much everything we hoped for and expect. Same thing could be said about Jude Law as Captain Hook.
Never say his name.
Similar to Peter Pan, I can't say he was the best version of the character we've ever seen, but in terms of just doing the character justice, he absolutely does. Now, the biggest standout of this entire movie is without a doubt Ever Anderson as Wendy. This girl at such a young age just radiates talent and charisma. But it truly is no surprise. I mean, definitely runs in the family. Down the line, if she ever stars in a Resident Evil film of her own, I'm all for it. Now, a lot of this movie rests on her shoulders. And this being almost entirely from her perspective really sets her up as the true lead of the movie. You know, she's the one you spend the most time with. The fact that she's relatable, empathetic, and brave really makes her the true heart and soul of this movie.
To grow up might just be the biggest adventure of all.
Now, the pacing in this movie was surprisingly great as well. Most of what you already know gets set up pretty quickly. And things do happen a little fast in the first act, but the movie does find its pace throughout and maintains it pretty well. And the action itself isn't necessarily anything mind-blowing, but the kid inside me was having fun, which just further shows how self-aware this movie is. Now, I will say this movie does feel a little bit generic. I mean, it is a live-action Disney film. The predictability in these movies are always a bit on the nose, which can be frustrating, but really nothing to where the movie is completely ruined by it. Also, there was some noticeable CGI that could have been worked on just a little bit more, especially with Tinkerbell. Moments where even her entire face looked CG. And there were certain moments where the flying effects were a bit off as well. At times, Wendy and even Peter Pan looked pretty stiff flying around. It was just a little too evident that they were on harnesses. The flight design could have flowed a little bit better. But again, none of this ruins the entire film. Peter Pan and Wendy was better than I expected. I can't say I have any intention of revisiting this movie anytime soon, but I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it either. It's fun and it's pretty entertaining, with decent action and some well done heartfelt moments. And I appreciate that this movie doesn't try to reinvent too much either. It takes a story we all know and are familiar with, and uses that to make a modern film fans can enjoy. Nothing more, nothing less. Which is why Peter Pan and Wendy gets a 7 out of 10. So how would you rank Peter Pan and Wendy? Let me know down below. I noticed some of you aren't subscribed yet. Maybe consider hitting that button and that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any future content. As always, your time is appreciated, and I'll catch you on the next one.
We shall defend our isle, whatever the cost may be.